In the previous episode, we prepared a plan for the main land use decisions in the city's expansion area and implemented the farmland along with the adjacent neighborhood according to that plan. Before moving on to the remaining areas, let's refine our planning a bit. We designated a flat section of the land for generic industry. Taking into account the old industrial building and the train yard in this area, we'll go for a design that highlights the industrial past of the zone. For that, we'll be using assets from the Industrial Evolution Pack. On the hill we've reserved for recreational use, we'll place park structures and create pedestrian access from the coastline all the way up to the top. On the flat side of this unzoned area, we'll place sports facilities. On the steeper side, we can have the city's first hospital along with commercial and office zones. In the neighborhood zone we've designated, we'll use the wall-to-wall style wisely to create a unique layout. We'll take a closer look at the detailed layout of the neighborhood once we get to that part. Along the boulevard that separates the industrial and residential areas, we'll plan high-density commercial zones. Of course, there might be some things I've overlooked aside from what we've planned, so it's worth quickly checking the city's info views. Given the 17% unemployment rate shown in the population data and the high demand for industry, it makes sense to start implementing the plan from the industrial zone. The 56% highly educated population we've been trying to reduce is still quite high. In the new neighborhood we're going to build, we'll restrict education again. Also, even though there's no elementary school in the previous neighborhood, elementary school graduation levels are still high. So I'm not planning to place an elementary school in the new neighborhood either. We didn't place a high school in the newly developed area, but we had already connected it to other parts of the city via public transport. So the last neighborhood we built might have gained access to high schools through those connections. However, this area, which doesn't have any public transport yet, seems to have no access to high schools. Looking at the university data, we can see that the schools out policy we implemented is working. The city has clearly failed when it comes to public libraries. It would be a good idea to add one in the new neighborhood. The city's power currently comes solely from wind energy. In the new industrial zone, we could introduce an alternative energy source. We don't have any issues with healthcare, but since I've only built medical clinics so far, I'm considering placing a hospital in a suitable spot within the new area. The crime rate is low, but we need to increase our prison capacity. I've neglected road and park maintenance, so I'm adding that to my notes as well. The radio coverage does not include the new areas. The 50% city attractiveness rating has started attracting around 1,500 tourists weekly, putting pressure on traffic. For this reason, we need to improve public transportation. The preliminary road layout I designed according to the master plan consists of secondary collector roads and local streets. I tried to create a road network that would form as few intersections as possible, with the main arterial and the boulevard. In this map, the land is quite fragmented due to the rivers. There are no large flat areas in terms of topography. To make efficient use of the land in this confined space, we are moving forward with a compact city layout. Before starting the industrial zone, I'll be building the city's first roundabout at this point. I tried not to lose space from the industrial zone, but it would be better if I shifted the roundabout a little further. Now we can continue with the industrial zone. Dead-end streets are generally not encountered in industrial areas. However, since every piece of land is valuable in our city, I'm trying to create the most efficient road layout. I've minimized the entrances and exits to the area and kept the intersection points to a minimum. We've established a railway connection between the two ends of the city. This station will gradually reduce the congestion at the other station. However, I'll add the new train line when I focus on public transportation. The Industrial Evolution buildings will blend nicely with the old industrial building. We could place service buildings, such as maintenance buildings, in the industrial zone where they're currently lacking. I enjoy designing on sloped land. However, even just 4 elevation lines on large buildings can create an unpleasant appearance. For this reason, we need to make the best use of the flat industrial zone. To relieve the first industrial zone, we could move some service buildings here. The high-capacity police headquarters will provide a solution to the prison capacity issue. The city's life is hanging by a thread. The service buildings have slightly reduced the industrial zone, but we still have enough space for an industrial area that will meet the needs. The passenger station has started being used. First, I'll zone the area and then try to select the suitable ones from the growables. On this side, I'm only zoning in a way that surrounds the old industrial structure. I'll mostly choose historical-looking growables with red brick. These buildings only appear at level 1. The buildings level up very quickly, which is why I've missed some of them. When selecting buildings, I make sure they have brick facades and are old, but I also pay attention to them being smokeless. Unfortunately, this significantly narrows down the variety of buildings. The results from zoning aren't very promising. It would be better if I took control of it. By blending historical-looking level 1 buildings with modern level 3 ones, a nice result has started to emerge. The brick appearance has become very dominant here. There will be heavy pedestrian traffic from this overpass to the hill and surrounding parks. For this reason, bringing it closer to the train station could further increase its usage. By taking control, we've achieved a nice balance between the red brick old structures and the modern ones. Keeping the number of smokestack buildings to a reasonable level was also a good decision. I forgot to add an alternative energy power plant. The size and design of the oil power plant building could be a good fit for this area. The area where the recycling center is located seems suitable for the new power plant. Since we've added another smokestack building, I should reduce one of the smokestack factories. Too many smokestacks negatively affect the design. We can reduce the crowd of wind turbines here and achieve a more reasonable appearance. I'll use a large water tower to utilize the center of the roundabout. Actually, this area is very close to the industrial buildings. However, due to the mod I'm using, we aren't affected by the ground pollution impact. The Hide It mod only hides pollution visually but causes some issues, so I can't use it. Instead, I'm using the Pollution Solution mod, which completely removes the negative effects of pollution. The new police headquarters has provided a solution to the prison capacity issue. Looking at the employees, I was relieved to see that the overeducated issue is at a manageable level. I need to add a sewage treatment plant. I intentionally left the empty space next to the cargo terminal for service buildings like this. But by shifting the road slightly toward the hill, I'll create a more usable space and also make room for a service road that connects to the cargo terminal. This way, truck traffic will flow more smoothly. We can extend the tram line to serve the industrial area. Routing the tram line through the intersection on the main arterial road didn't turn out to be a very logical choice. I'll add another power plant to bring the electricity budget down to a normal level. We can fit the plant into this area. We've gotten rid of the unrealistic, cluttered look of the wind turbines. It's nice to see that passengers getting off at the train station are walking all the way to the tram stop and using the tram line, despite the distance. Now let's start the landscaping of the new industrial area, beginning with the roundabout. Sometimes I get carried away while placing trees, but our first roundabout definitely deserves it. I want to soften the shiny surface look of the train yard. I'll also try to create a slightly neglected appearance for the area. I'm an amateur when it comes to using props for detailing. Since they don't affect the game mechanics, I usually ignore this step. Do you use props a lot in your designs? although it's not exactly as I imagined. We've gotten rid of the shiny surface look. I preserved this abandoned historical industrial building, thinking of it as a structure, awaiting the right project to be transformed into a museum. Although we won't get to see such a project come to life, the building still has a unique presence in its current form. Although there are only a few factories that meet my criteria, we've managed to create a unique industrial area. With the addition of service buildings, almost all of the factories have reached level 3. This increases the production of special goods, allowing them to be exported. Since special goods are used in commercial areas, this suggests that we can create more commercial zones without relying on imports. We can see that most of the fields in the agricultural area are exporting. Therefore, by increasing the production facilities that process crops, we can enable the export of more valuable products. This will have a positive impact on our budget. I've fitted the draft road layout for the new neighborhood to the terrain. To use the area more efficiently, I'll be routing the train tracks underground. We can also soften the slope a bit more to make it more in harmony with the road layout. This way, we've shaped the topography exactly as I wanted, with a gentle slope and a direction towards the coastline. Now we can easily build the road layout and continue with the planning of the area. If we make the most of the gentle slope, we can create a beautiful neighborhood view. Let's start planning our neighborhood now. All the growables in the neighborhood will be wall-to-wall. Therefore, in the curved sections of the road layout, where the wall-to-wall arrangement wouldn't give the desired result, we'll try to place service buildings and green spaces in these areas as much as possible. Accordingly, let's first show the service buildings. At these points, there will be a high school, library, fire station, and post office. To limit education, I don't plan to build an elementary school. We can place the main park of the neighborhood at the highest point of the area. Let's place the other parks in the sections that align with the curved parts of the roads. At the central point of the area, there will be a square that will connect the neighborhood park to the coast. The commercial areas will extend perpendicularly from the center to the coast, dividing the area into two. I have divided the residential areas into 4 tiers based on building heights. The first tier, with the lowest building heights, will be located in the areas closest to the coast, where the elevation is the lowest. Following this logic, we will plan the other residential areas based on the elevation increase. We will connect the green spaces and the coastal area with pedestrian paths. For now, I plan to leave the areas between the industrial zone and the neighborhood as reserved land without specifying any use. On the boulevard side, high-density commercial areas will be located according to the upper plan. However, I will develop this area together with the other area. Now, let's start implementing the plan with the service buildings. As an alternative to the high school, I chose the Institute of Creative Arts building because of its design. I believe its modern appearance will blend better with the wall-to-wall layout. This building needs to face the other direction. Thanks to the Parkify mod, the parks located within the parking area don't need to have their frontage facing the vehicle road. Now we can place the growables according to the height tiers we've defined. I want to start from the center and try the tiering I've planned. In wall-to-wall, building height increases at levels 3 and 5 for buildings of similar types. 2x2 level 1 growables will form the lowest tier. This building type has a higher building height compared to the other type. Therefore, we will use level 1 buildings of this type in the third tier. We will also use level 3 buildings of the same building type for the highest tier. The height tiers we determined with the help of the slope are starting to create a nice result. The buildings here look overly dense. It would be good to give them some breathing room. Let's continue with the commercial areas. Level 5 buildings are giving a low land value warning. Fortunately, we won't be using many level 5 buildings. Once the other buildings are completed, a beautiful neighborhood center will emerge. I will give these buildings one last chance. We've completed all the buildings. By gradually reducing the building heights towards the coast, we've created a really cool neighborhood look. Now, let's create a nice walking path along the coast. Unfortunately, I need to replace these with level 4, but it's not a big issue. I forgot to apply the schools out policy. Let's name our neighborhood Rowan. If I don't add something for people to visit along the pedestrian path by the coast, no one will use this path. I acted too early in putting up the fences. Now let's finalize our neighborhood by doing the landscaping. I had some reservations about using wall-to-wall due to the curved roads in the layout. However, with careful planning and sensible building height tiering, we've achieved a great result. I was quite indecisive when considering the land use in this area. Taking into account the surrounding residential, industrial, and agricultural zones, I decided to incorporate office and commercial uses in this area, which were previously absent. Besides office and commercial areas, we will also allocate space for sports facilities, which I had somewhat overlooked. Let's start with a park area that will feature recreational uses extending from the hilltop down to the coast. Climbing to the top will be a bit exhausting for people, but they'll have the opportunity to enjoy a beautiful city view. Since the only access to the top is via the pedestrian path, our options are limited. Although I might be going a bit overboard with the idea of a Ferris wheel, I'd like to include a structure that can be seen from most parts of the city. Let's add a short radio mast to the top to bring this area within the radio coverage range. We've created a beautiful recreational area stretching from the coastline to the hilltop. The Ferris wheel idea has also made a nice contribution to the city's skyline. Although there are many medical clinics in our city, there isn't a single hospital. This location is perfect for one. Similar to the one on the other side of the boulevard, residential buildings could be placed in this block. Since this block with the hospital has well-organized grids, we can develop it with modern city center commercial buildings. Let's continue with office buildings. We will gradually reduce the building heights from this block towards the agricultural area. I will increase the diversity of buildings by using financial district office buildings. In this last block, since there are no gaps in the grids, we can use wall-to-wall office buildings. This area between the industrial and residential zones is very suitable for high-density commercial buildings in a scattered layout. Since there is no slope in this block, we can use the sports facilities from the sports venues pack. I think it was the right decision to have commercial and office spaces in the center of the new development area. The height of the hospital and the surrounding buildings, and the gradual decrease in height towards the agricultural area, also added a nice distinction to the city's skyline. Now let's focus on public transportation. We can add a tram stop in front of the hospital. The usage of this tram line is very high. Once we add the new train line, this usage might decrease. But for now, let's increase the number of trams a bit. The current bus line in this area follows a route that takes passengers to the tram stops. Similarly, we can create a line with a ring system to ensure passengers have access to both the tram stops and the train station. The demand for the bus lines is quite high. This shows that we're on the right track. I think the train line connecting the two ends of the city will reduce the pressure on other forms of transportation. Our train line is not being used for some reason. Since the trains make a turn from a very distant point, no one is choosing this line. The problem seems to be coming from this connection. We now have a functional train line. Let's see how much demand it will attract. Tourists coming by car occasionally put pressure on traffic, causing congestion at this intersection. We should add a roundabout at this point to ease the traffic. It would be more logical to elevate the train track up to the roundabout and bring it down to ground level after the intersection. Let's place a large water tower in the center of this roundabout as well. Moving forward with a compact city layout on a narrow landmass is increasing pressure on traffic. However, traffic flow is still around 90%. There doesn't seem to be an issue for now. One train is enough on the rail line. The usage of the line is quite high. The excessive congestion on the tram line has decreased with the new train line. The new bus lines are also being heavily used. Thanks to these bus lines, we've been able to significantly increase the use of the train and tram systems. Our city's population has reached around 25,000. We've reduced unemployment from 17% to 8%. Increasing the city attractiveness by 2 points has raised the weekly tourist count from about 1,500 to 1,750. Despite the measures we've taken, the education levels haven't changed much. I'm curious to see if it will stay the same if we stop building schools. I'll give it a try. I hope I've been able to present a new approach that will inspire your city in this episode. I'm eagerly awaiting your comments. Thank you for watching. Take care.